Oh my god. Hi, internet. I tried to record this video and then I accidentally pressed the stop button. I'm gonna do it again. I have to move the mouse. I have to put it somewhere so I don't accidentally click stop. Okay. Hi, internet. I wanted to have videos for you. Not videos, pictures. They're like videos, but they're static. I wanted to have pictures on the wall for you, and I actually just came back from a hardware store, which apparently wasn't a hardware store. I don't know, on the signage they said it was like home, farm, propane, animals. So I thought surely nails were implied there. They had no nails. So I can't hang up my pictures yet. I'll have to buy more somewhere else. This video is not about programming. It's about something kind of related to a picture I wanted to hang up. The picture is not of Sailor Moon, but this video is about Sailor Moon. So a friend of mine, since I moved here, was like, hey, Ben, I want to start up another tabletop role-playing game. I will be your storyteller, dungeon master, whatever you want to call it. If you don't know what a tabletop role-playing game is, you've probably heard of Dungeons and Dragons. We're not playing Dungeons and Dragons, but it's all in the same family. Also, little side note, I just love this art. There's something about the way that fantasy was depicted in this time, right? Like, even gritty things like, what am I thinking? Like, fucking Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, right, which is all supposed to be gritty and stuff. No one looks like this. No one wants to be these people. I mean, he took a critical hit. So don't get critical hit if you don't want to be this guy. But like, you know what I mean? Like, these aren't like appealing, shiny, flashy characters like what we have in modern stuff. And I just think that's really interesting how the aesthetic has changed. I didn't watch like Conan the Barbarian and stuff, Warrior Princess Xena. It's more in that like kind of feeling, you know. Which, I don't know. I didn't watch those shows when I was younger, but that seems like the aesthetic to me. But anyway, in this role-playing game, sorry, tangents, which my brain is probably going to do a lot of. Yeah, I've got a lot of tangents to go on. So he said early on to me that this game would feature magical girl transformations. You can start to see where this is going. The game so far has no signs that that's coming, which is very funny to me. It's much more, it feels like, I mean, he made the comparison to Alien, and that's totally true. I've seen the Alien movies, but it's been a while. But it is very like this gritty, grounded, realistic sci-fi where, no, we don't have warp drive. This isn't Star Trek. Like, if people want to travel long distances, it takes time, and so they go into sleep, hibernation. They freeze themselves to do those kinds of journeys. Like, it's that kind of sci-fi setting. Which to me feels like polar opposite of like magical girl transformations, right? It's like I don't know. It feels like total opposites to me. And I asked him at one point, I was like, Steven, were you doing one of those lies where it's like so opposite to the truth that I was supposed to know, but because this is nothing like? He's like, no. The magical girl transformations are coming. I'm like, how is that possible? So anyway, and the first thought that enters my brain when I hear magical girl transformations, even though I'm trying to think if I've seen anything like it. There are things. But, like many people maybe don't know tabletop role-playing games, but don't know Dungeons & Dragons. I don't know much about magical girl transformations, but I have heard of Sailor Moon. And so I thought, man, I should read Sailor Moon. So now I'm going to ramble about Sailor Moon. So I don't know, it's very funny to read. I thought it was 80s. It was actually the author first started writing it in 91. Which is basically the 80s. I think, I'm like, how old was I in 91? What was I doing? Didn't Super Mario World come out in 91? So I was probably playing Super Mario World at my friend's house. Not watching Sailor Moon. And even though, something that really stands out to me, one of the first things, and this is what I've heard, right? Sailor Moon is like, it's for girls, right? And I'm not big on like the gender roles in general in life. But I don't know. I'm a guy. I was raised a guy, so even though I think I lived with my mom and sister for a long time, so I think I got a lot more of the feminine side of things than maybe a lot of other boys growing up. But for what it is, I was raised in a male where we have these gender roles in society. So anyway, something like Sailor Moon. Right, for the most part, it doesn't appeal to me. would be my first, impression. Even though things that I know it has inspired, like Steven Universe, I fucking love Steven Universe. That was one of the best shows ever, and so feminine values and everything, and kind of a subversion of a lot of the tropes of modern superhero things and everything, which again was like so cool to see. Just anything that takes a different angle is so fun. So yeah, wonderful show. Again, I know inspired by. Sailor Moon, and as I read Sailor Moon, I can even see more. It's like, yes, this was totally inspired by Sailor Moon. as well as other things that I know from my childhood. Like something I did watch as a kid was Power Rangers, right? The most boy thing you could probably watch. I think that show was for everyone. You have the girl dressed in pink and the girl dressed in yellow who is Asian. Let's not think too hard about that. 90s. Or think about it as, or I don't know why I say don't think about it. But anyway, you know what I mean. 90s. Also inspired by Sailor Moon, which, and all these things were inspired by other things. I was doing a little Googling. I was like, what came first? Like, surely Sailor Moon wasn't the first magical girl transformation thing, and it wasn't. There was a bunch of things I don't even recognize the names of and don't remember anymore, but is the one that I think most people know and think of when you hear Sailor Moon, or sorry, magical girl transformations. It was also interesting that Transformers was another show I remember from a kid, and I was like, oh, Transform. And that was in '84, so I was like, wow, that's even older than I thought. But whatever, probably different enough. But anyway, these ideas, whatever. What's the point? Reading the manga. So yes, very girly, absolutely confirmed. Some lines stand out to me, and it's so interesting to... I've had this debate with other people on, like, there's kind of two versions of... what makes a strong female and feminism. And I think the one that I grew up most with was like, tomboys and butch and a girl being more guy-like. That was a way in which, a woman might kind of reject the gender roles and do feminism, but on the other, and that's what I mostly grew up with and know. But then I've talked to people since who are like, no, you can. Why is it the way to be a cool girl is to not be a girl and to be a guy instead? No. You can be a cool girl as a girl, right? You can max feminism. That's okay, or femininity. And that is absolutely what Sailor Moon is, right? And it's so interesting to see that in lines and compare it with other things. So, like, a couple of the lines that stood out to me. One of them was, I don't remember a lot of things that happened to Sailor Moon, right? Whatever. She's worried about betraying this guy that she likes or loves or has a crush on. They say it every which way, so I'm unclear. Well, I think she says that she just loves this guy. But then I'm also like, you're 14 and you met him 3 pages ago, so I don't know if I believe you, but whatever. But anyway, so she's worried that she's hurt this guy, and a bunch of other things happened. People are trying to betray them, blah, 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 blah. And she's exhausted. And one of her friends says, this is the line, she was like, Sailor Moon, she must be so emotionally exhausted. And that phrase stood out to me because I was immediately like, the Hulk would never say, oh no, guys, Iron Man is emotionally exhausted, right? Like that would never happen, right? Because that's not guy values. That's not how, you're not supposed to be overwhelmed by emotions. So that was, I don't know. So making that kind of parallel was or lack of parallel, whatever, was very interesting to me. Another line, I don't remember who said this, but it was early in Sailor Moon, kind of getting her powers, I don't know, second time she was fighting things or something. Which also I want to talk about how fast everything goes. But anyway, the line, I forget what exactly the line was, but it was something like, yeah, you've got your cool powers and everything, but remember your real power lies in that you're a girl. It was something like that. That was like the sentiment. I don't remember the exact line. But again, that stood out to me. It's like, that's cool. Why not? And something else about the speed. So, okay, that's that part that stands out to me. That's part one. Part one, the femininity. Part two, the speed. It's very funny to me to read something and be like, how did this happen? How did they get there? This is all going so fast, because I'm reading it. I can read as slow or quickly as I want, but I feel like it'll just be like, oh, they're at the North Pole? Oh, we're at the North Pole now. They must be under the snow. Oh, we're under the snow now. And I'm like, how'd you get to the North Pole? How'd you get under the snow? I didn't see you dig, but they just go wherever they need to. And it's just very... I don't know if that's just the kinds of things I watch or read. Something semi-related is a while ago, before COVID, I had started to write this book. And I know that books skip time a lot, oftentimes. You just skip to the thing that's interesting. But I wanted like this calendar in my mind and to know what happened and when it just seemed inconceivable to me that you would just like skip 3 days without any explanation about what happened during those 3 days. And even if I did, sometimes I would kind of cheat it by jumping to a different character. But in my mind, it's like, well, what was the other character doing for those 3 days? I want to know so that when we go back to them, or if they happen to talk while we're following a different person, we know what's happening. Right? Sailor Moon, no, you could not do that in Sailor Moon or a lot of media, right? I mean, I'm sure even other things I've loved, like, I don't know, Star Trek: The Next Generation, like whatever, for the different kind of sci-fi than Alien, right? We're just going to the things that matter, and that's fine. But it is funny to read the manga and then be aware of me being like, "You're going way too fast." It's like, how is that possible? I'm reading. It's as slow as I want. But I just thought that again, that was just another thing that stood out to me. And yeah, things just happen. I mean, another thing. It feels very Saturday morning cartoon to me, and like, of course it does, because it influenced those cartoons like Power Rangers, where it's just like, here's the monster of the week, they do a thing, okay, that's done, we're on to the next one. And it's just funny to see that in writing, partially because I know a huge reason why that's done in TV is because things are like aired out of order at the time, right? Back before you could just watch whatever you wanted on the internet. It's like, no, if you want to watch the episode of Star Trek today, we'll just keep going to Star Trek, you got to be here on Thursday at 8 p.m. or whatever it was. I don't remember. I'm just making up a date and time, obviously. Right, that's when you're going to be here for the 1 hour to watch it, and if you miss it, too bad, you missed it. And so the TV shows couldn't do continuity, and I remember watching like a documentary about, again, what a nerd, about Deep Space Nine, and Deep Space Nine doing their continuity thing was really controversial. The network was like, no, you're going to lose all the viewers if you do this. You can't just have every episode be a to be continued, because if someone misses something, they're going to stop watching. They're going to lose interest. That's a huge risk. We want our ad money, right? We're a TV network. But anyway, they got away with it clearly, and it was a wonderful couple seasons. And now that's like the norm, right? But so it's interesting to see that in a novel, I say novel, whatever, graphic novel, manga, where I don't think that was a problem, or was it? I know that some of these things get first like published in a magazine, and then when they're popular, you like retroactively put them in a book. So like, is that why? Is it like maybe someone missed that issue, and they would have missed I don't know. It's weird to me, because again, I know that happens, why that happened, because of how TV was distributed, and so it's weird to see it in not TV, right? And again, and to have such strong parallels to things in TV, where it's like, oh, this is the exact structure that they used again in like Power Rangers, but I'm seeing it here in Sailor Moon. So anyway, seeing and again in manga form. I'm not watching the show. Which maybe I should have said up front. I thought about watching the show, but I've heard that there was like a bit of censorship because just different values. It's so funny the different ways, like how, I don't know, gender and sexuality is in Japan versus the U.S. Right? There's things we do here that in Japan they wouldn't like, and vice versa. And an example of that I've heard is Sailor Moon, because there were two girls who are in a relationship, and I think what I heard was that in the anime, when they brought it over to the US, they just said they're cousins. And maybe we just carefully edit the episode in case, I don't know, did they have to cut out kisses? I don't know. So I was like, okay, let's read the manga then. For all I know, the manga has a similar thing, when it came over to the US, I don't know. But I figured there's a better chance. It'd be harder to edit a manga. You'd have to rip out whole pages or totally rearrange. So let's talk about the next thing I thought was interesting. And I do have some reference for this. So I've got 3 samples of some manga here. This is the first one I ever read. Death Note was the first manga I read. What issue is this for? I don't know. I just grabbed one randomly of my books that aren't yet shelved. I'm working on moving in still. So something that stood out to me, and I'll just like flip through. I mean, it looks like probably what you think a graphic novel is going to look like, right? You've got panels, people say the things they say, whatever, right? Panels, panels, panels. This is what I'm used to. What Sailor Moon does, and again, I'm reading it online, so I can't show you, but I was like, what's the oldest thing I have? I happened to buy this. This was one of the first animes I watched in college, and I have a funny story about it, which maybe we'll get to. But let me find a page that represents, you just see it everywhere. So like, they do more stuff like this, where it's like, this one, it's not even in a frame. This stuff goes like edge to edge on the page. And this is like 3 views in one? It's bananas. And and they get bananas by like other things that I've read standards. Here's another example. I don't know what's going on here, but I mean it's fine. I just know that sometimes things go on in here that maybe we don't want on YouTube in this manga. But anyway, right? It's like, okay, we've got the frame up here, and it's all angled, and then we've got a bunch of pictures, and again, there's no clear lines, and there's like three. God, sorry, the orientation always confuses me. Right? Here's the herb. You know what I'm saying. Also, oh my gosh, sorry, this is totally unrelated. I didn't know I was getting into this when I bought this manga. I wish I could get it in focus. It's artists. She writes about stuff, and she's like, someone sent me a mix CD, and it had this song on it. I'm like, oh, and it's like incredible to look those up, and like, I don't know, it was really cool to read. I didn't know I was going to get that out of buying the manga. I want to find if I can see any example. I'll just have to describe it to you. Describing picture is great. There was one page in, now I want to say Fushigi Yugi, Sailor Moon, where like she's mostly in a frame. I don't think she was doing a kick. She does lots of kicks, but I don't think this was a kick, but her leg was going like totally down out of the frame, just so you got like her whole pose. But then like in the space below, there was a dude's face, but her leg was just totally in front of the face, and they weren't interacting, and you could tell that from context. But like it was like, if it wasn't drawn, I would be like, you move him to the side, you know what I mean? Like it was obviously intentionally done, but it was just like straight across his face, and he's like talking now in this frame, nothing to do with that leg. So it's like, what's going on here? So I mean, it's very cool. I think it's way more interesting. Even and I wondered too. I was like, okay, well, this is now an example of two like girl things, you know, Fushigi Yugi and Sailor Moon, whereas Death Note is probably a guy. I mean, yeah, definitely. So I was like, okay, well, I've got Yotsuba. But it's the same. It's just square panels all the time. It's always square panels. So I assume it's a time thing, which again is why I went back to a really old Fushigi Yugi, which I knew to be an older manga. So that I don't know. That was just interesting to see. I'm also really curious to know what they made the mangas in software-wise, because I say drawn, but I know it's not 100% drawn. I can tell that there's a software aspect. Because there's interesting patterns where you can see it was like, it looks like it was something in Illustrator and she just took the texture, but like they don't 100% line up. Or there's photos that have been made black and white of like Tokyo, and those are just pasted in the background. So like clearly some software is used to arrange this stuff. And I just wonder in the 90s, right? In 91, 24 years old. Like computers in 91, like what did you have? A black and white Mac? I don't know. It's just interesting to think. I'm sure I could Google this and find out. But that was again like just the arrangement of the manga was something else that stood out to me as I was reading it. And I think the third thing. So how long is this video now? Oh my God, we're going 20 minutes. Who knew that talking about Sailor Moon was going to be one of my longer videos? Another thing that stood out to me was just like I'll just say the tropes, but I know that a lot of them weren't tropes at the time, or must not have been. I mean, again, like we said, like magical girl transformations, right? If you do a magical girl transformation today, you're going to think of Sailor Moon, and you might be like, oh, how Sailor Moon of you, what is this trope, right? And again, Sailor Moon was borrowing from other things at the time, but it was the big thing. But there are other things in there that clearly are just like they borrowed all these ideas. And again, going back to the speed things, like one of them was a sword and a stone. Someone's like, come on, girls, who can pull the sword out of stone? And that's like one page. Okay, we're done with that. Never mind. We did our Arthur thing. They got the sword. We're done. I was like, okay. And then there's a time when the guy that she likes, what happens? She's like knocked out or something, but he kisses her, and that's what wakes her up. And they're like, oh, she was, you know, and she's a princess. So it's like, oh, the princess brought back with a kiss. Someone said a line like that. And I was like, okay, when was Sleeping Beauty? Okay, that was in the 50s. I knew that was older, but I didn't know how much older. So it's funny to see like all those things that are clearly all kind of mashed together. And then also things like now there's UFOs, and I've got up to some part. I haven't finished reading it, so don't spoil me. You can't. It's a video at the time, because I'm probably going to just pick up reading it after this. But anyway, I was like, well, UFOs, just the way it's done, it was like, I'm thinking like X-Files. And it's just interesting to go back to a thing that I know was so influential, like made these tropes real, and see both those things and the things it was borrowing, and then think of other things. So I don't know if this conversation is making any sense, but Twin Peaks is a show I've never seen before, and people have told me, you don't need to watch Twin Peaks, Ben. You're going to find it kind of boring and cliche because you've already seen X-Files and Fringe and played Deadly Premonition, which was totally, I understand the creator of that game loved Twin Peaks. And so I can imagine people would have said a similar thing to me about, like, Ben, you don't need to read Sailor Moon. You've already seen Steven Universe. You watched Power Rangers when you were a kid. You know, you're going to get it. Power Rangers, I think, is a very good parallel to, and how they handle the bad guys. It's so, like, they're just villains trying to take over the world, and then they're defeated, and there will be a new villain next week or whatever. But anyway, so I don't know. It is interesting to go back and read it anyway, like knowing that that's what's going to happen, and then it makes me think maybe I should watch Twin Peaks, and with kind of that same lens of like, this is an old thing. It surely borrowed from a lot of things, and but it was very popular, and so a lot of things borrowed from it. And I'm sure I would see some interesting things there too, and also and older as well. I don't remember when Twin Peaks came out, but. Anyway, so I don't know, just kind of seeing that stuff, and it was making me think about a lot of those things, like anime-wise, like I watched Naruto when it first came out was that early 2000s? Yeah, early 2000s. Hunter x Hunter, the original Hunter x Hunter, and so now when there's another anime that's like stubborn youth who's a good friend, perseveres through determination, I'm like, I've already seen that, like 2-3 Flame of Recca. What else? What other nonsense did I watch? Right? It's like I've already seen that story a million times. Games. So I just start thinking of this, from the same sort of thing. Games. I played Minecraft to death. I played Subnautica. I don't need to build shit anymore, guys. I don't care if Ark has dinosaurs. I already built bases and mined for things. I'm done with that. So I don't know, but going back to something old, like I'm tapping on these mangas that aren't even what we're talking about. Sailor Moon, what's wrong with my brain? Going back to Sailor Moon, even though I have seen, all those things, it is interesting to see like where it started in a sense. Again, none of these things started anywhere. Everything borrows from everything. But yeah, popular, whatever. Obviously important in that way. I shouldn't put quotes on important. It did. It influenced a lot of things. So it is important in that way. So I don't know. Interesting to read with kind of that perspective in mind through that lens. Anyway, that's it. This video has gone long enough. I will keep reading Sailor Moon, I guess, and probably I should just buy the copies online. Or did I already say this? I forget. It would be funny to like. She's around. Does she have a Patreon? I'll subscribe to her on Patreon. Also, speaking of Hunter x Hunter, I think someone told me this a long time ago that the author of Hunter x Hunter was married to the person who drew Sailor Moon. I think I heard that, and then I totally forgot that fact when I was looking on Wikipedia because like she's still alive, right? It was funny to see that fact, and it's like, oh, she's married to the guy who wrote Hunter x Hunter. It's like, oh god, I did remember. I forgot about that. I knew that fact. That's so funny. Yeah, one of them did a girl anime and one of them did a guy anime, or manga rather. Got turned into animes, obviously. Okay, anyway, quite enough of that. I promise not to talk about anime in all of my videos. It's got to be a programming thing to talk about. I'll get there. Thanks for watching.